Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us already. We're doing this every single week, sometimes twice a week. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over at your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. I am your host, Dino DeCespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Angle. What is up, man?
Oh, I'm feeling fantastic, buddy. 2 football matches were played today. There was intrigue. There was some drama. There was some suspense. There were some surprises. There were some things that maybe we expected. It was everything that we love about football. And I'm ready to talk about it. And we gotta crack the celebratory beer skis for this one.
No doubt.
Sounds
Congratulations to us. We made it. Gold medal game. Still alive.
Made it to the final. Let's go.
Let's go get this hardware. All right. Where do you want to get started?
United States of America 1, Germany 0. Much closer than the last time these teams came together. Mm-hmm. I thought there was a lot of interesting things just even from the beginning of the match. If you're ready to do a little bit of lineup talk.
Ooh, I'm ready.
We had the full complement. Dunn, Davidson, Girma, Fox. How are you feeling when you looked at that?
Very happy. So saw the post. Obviously, we got some inklings that Fox was going to be back. Yep. I think there were some shots of her kind of getting warmed up. So to see her and Davidson back in the lineup, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was encouraging. On the other side, some big absences for Germany. No Leah Schuler, no Alex Pop, and then obviously Lena Oberdorf already out of there with the long-term injury. Mm-hmm. You know, even though we like when USA does well, we root for USA. We are American dudes after all. Little bit of a bummer when you don't get to see the clash of the 2 full-strength squads, as full-strength as you could be with this ridiculous Olympic schedule and the short rosters. But still, you wanted to see all the best players out there, so that was a little bit of a bummer.
I was definitely bummed. Obviously, those are 2 big-time players, and you mentioned Germany is already shorthanded. I didn't think that necessarily made this game a shoo-in for the U.S. Because even though those talented players go off, I think we saw more Naomi today. We saw some Freigang. She got in as a sub. Provided a little bit of a different look that I'm not sure the USA was totally ready for. I think the chances that Germany was put together early, I think made the first half pretty interesting. So you would have loved to see Germany at full strength, but obviously not what we got. But they still came out, played really hard, played really well, I think, in the first half.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they had absolutely no fear of the U.S. I think, they're Germany. Their footballing culture stands on its own. But I will tell you, no matter what team you are, it just feels like when you play the USA, you are going to run into a brick wall multiple times. And that brick wall's name is Naomi Girma.
Absolutely.
We got to talk about her, man. I thought she was the best player on the field. And I'm probably late to this. I know people on WOSO Twitter have talked about it. She's the best American player. She's the best player for U.S. women's national team, pound for pound. I mean, obviously, the 3 forwards of the apocalypse, they score goals and they get the offense going. But pound for pound, Girma's the best player. I think she has to be in the conversation for one of the 5 best players in the world at this point. She's the central hub of everything on this team.
Absolutely. Emma Hayes definitely agrees with you. So shout out to Henry Bushnell, at Henry Bushnell on Twitter, who quoted Emma Hayes, I think from the post-game presser. Emma Hayes on Naomi Girma says, and I quote, "Look, she's the best defender I've ever seen, period. Ever, period." End quote.
Okay. That's pretty good.
So we've got an ally. Definitely agree with you on Girma. She was the story of the match for me. In my notes, I'm just like, oh my God, okay. Naomi again. What a stop. Like every 4th or 5th note, it's a Girma related note. And I think zooming out, we have to give the combination of Girma and Naeher like incredible props here. I also jotted in my notes. It's like having 2 goalies. It's just like somebody just like you have to beat 2 goalies if you want to beat this U.S. team. Both of those players, Girma and Naeher, they've put in 5 full 90s and then 2 30-minute added extra time periods in a 13-day period.
Jeez.
And in that time, I'm talking about Naeher here, 19 shots on target, only 2 goals. That's what the U.S. has given up. The USA as a team is +9 over those 5 matches, 11 goals for, 2 against. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Second best in the tournament still is Canada at +3.
Wow.
So, USA has lapped the field twice. And yeah, I think Girma is going to be the first thing I remember from this match. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. I mean, she's certified. I think one moment relatively early in the match that kind of stuck out to me that Girma's involved in that just kind of like encapsulates a little bit of what the squad has looked like. And we talk a lot about Emily Fox. Obviously, you're an Arsenal guy. I love the way she plays. There's a moment early in the match where Girma just pokes the ball away from one of the German attackers. And it looks like it's going over the line for a goal kick. And Emily Fox just busts her ass to get there, flies to the end line, takes the ball off the end line to avoid the corner kick, and then gets the ball up to Rodman. And then Rodman draws a foul. And then we get the free kick. And then you just like everything's reset. You have possession. The German possession's over. And I was just like, that right there, those three, that is like who they are in a nutshell.
Absolutely. It reminds me of something Asil said on the show where she, I think, was interviewing, I'm blanking on the player's name, but I think it was a French national team player who was talking about either a couple Olympics ago or a couple World Cups ago. And she was saying, yeah, we had the best team, the best players, but the Americans were just willing to die on the field.
Oh, right.
I think that was Asil quoting, one of the French national team players recounting that tournament. And I've thought about it probably like 10 times since then, because that's exactly what you're talking about. There was a moment where Emma Hayes also is sort of like trying to coach up Emily Fox right before halftime, just being like, all right, come on, let's go. Just like almost like a personal trainer would, like, like a little bit faster, pick up the pace, because I think she could kind of sense that halftime's coming. Things are sort of like starting to like exhale a little bit. And I think she wanted to keep the intensity up. But yeah, that is just how they play. And I think you see players, whether it's a Sonnet or a Dunn or a Fox, like you mentioned, even a Sophie Smith.
Yeah, hell yeah.
We'll get to her goal, but there's a lot of other strikers who don't even get to that ball based on the body positioning. This team just digs so way deep to do what they got to do. And it's sort of like part of the culture, which is so great to see. I think we've seen some other, nations kind of limp out of this tournament. Not something that I think you'd ever see this U.S. team do, even in the World Cup last year. Disappointing showing, but it wasn't for lack of effort.
That is a great call, man. And yeah, okay. Again, I fully admit, as you guys may be able to tell, Dino and I are Americans, so maybe this might sound a little hokey, but if you talk about that DNA, that culture within the U.S. women's national team, that's the stuff of like Michelle Akers and like Brandi Chastain, Mia Hamm, Megan Rapinoe, Christine Lilly. Like, that's what we're talking about of like, you show up to camp and you know what time it is. Like, this is who we are as players. The stars that over the crest for the World Cup victories, they're not there for decoration. Those were earned through very tough competition. So
hell yeah.
I think that's like, it's a massive part of who they are, like you said. And I want to flip it back real quick to Girma, if I may, because I love doing this. And I throw out, she might be in the conversation, one of the 5 best players in the world. Let's talk about center backs. Mappy Leone, you know what time it is. She's great. She's battling the health issues. Wendy Renard, I would say Millie Bright. I would say Amanda Ilestedt from Sweden. And I'm just going to throw in Alex Greenwood. She plays for Manchester City. She also plays for England. She's also very good. So Wendy Renard, Mappy, and Millie, I would say, closest to Girma's class. I don't know, man. I mean, I think it's between Mappy and Girma, because Renard, at the end of her prime. Millie, not quite as quick, a devastating set piece threat. So I love, I'm an England supporter on top of like I'm both sides. So I'm a big Millie Bright guy. I think Girma probably clears everybody, and the closest competitor right now is Mappy Leone.
I agree with that. I think Girma definitely clears everybody. I mean, she's controlling kind of everything defensively.
Yeah.
And it's not even just defensively. Like, you look at, I think we can kind of fast forward to the goal here, obviously.
Yeah.
95th minute, because this is important. Girma starts the action. It goes Girma, Coffey, Swanson, Smith, game.
Yeah,
in that order. You had trouble keeping track of all of the times that Girma just stuffs a chance that felt a little scary in the buildup. We're just so used to like this buildup being like, okay, something's happening. Okay, what are we going to do? Okay, Girma got it. Like, and it's right. Like at some point of 8, 10, 12 times of that happening, you're just like, wow, she just gets everything.
Yep.
It's the positioning, the physicality, the tools, the IQ, pass accuracy, the offensive-minded nature of her game as well. Like, she understands when to go laterally. She understands when to go upfield. And I think in a game like this, when the chances are, I don't want to say they're few and far between, but the really good chances were few and far between, to get something that is initiated from a Naomi Girma stop takeaway. Now we're off and running straight up the middle of the park too.
Yep.
It's one of those things where the pass begets the next good pass, begets the next good pass. And I think it all starts with that first one, Girma to Coffee, to kind of get Coffee up and running, because she's even got the understanding that Sam Coffee is playing that kind of game today.
Yes.
It's not like deep in the cut Sam Coffee. It's like front foot Sam Coffee.
Hell yeah.
You know, she was taking it another 1 or 2 touches each time and just kind of pushing the offense a little farther up. And then obviously we get the breakthrough late here.
Fucking great shout from you. Coffee, she just had so many moments. There was one where there was like a little bit of an in-between ball and Haran is kind of tracking back on it. And then Coffee's just like, nope, I got it. And then you see like Haran back off and Coffee like zooms up with it to like force the action. She was on fire today. I mean, obviously, I'm guessing she entered this match thinking, okay, yellow card accumulation, outlast match. Athletes, they do that kind of like, oh, I let my teammates down kind of thing. Like, I don't think she let anybody down. I think it was just, circumstances happens. You accumulate a yellow card sometimes. But like, she very clearly came into this match thinking, I'm establishing myself within the context of the team. And when she plays like that, on top of the way Girma plays, and then again, I'll reference the 3 forwards of the apocalypse. Shout out to Alyssa, our pal Alyssa. They're almost impossible to beat. Mm-hmm. The margin for error is so tiny against the USA when those players are humming like that.
Yeah, and I think the 3 forwards point is huge. I agree with you, shout out Alyssa, because you don't know what the combination is going to be.
Right.
You know? Like it's Fox and Rodman, or it's like Smith and Swanson, or it's Smith kind of dishing it across, and then Haran's there all of a sudden trying to do something, and and then like Lavelle's kind of in and out trying to pair up with Rodman, so the variance is kind of all over the place. Now, I think it's fitting that the goal came up the middle of the field because it's one of those things where, this has been a running theme, I think, for the last few weeks. When the other team knows what you're going to do, it's a little bit easier to defend. I thought it was really telling. Right up the center of the park, catch you slipping a little bit, and then obviously it takes a great display of determination from Sophie Smith to kind of like find her way to that ball, and then the finish. Oh my God, like full stretch, exquisite, biggest moment of the match. A quite literal dig deep kind of strike.
Yeah.
It looked like, just a pitching wedge, like, whacking half a pound of grass into the air, just to get the lift on it, get the placement right, and effectively just put the game in a place where it must have felt like, if you're a Germany fan or if a German player or part of the organization, it must have felt like an insurmountable lead. Like a 1-0 lead, 95th, 96th minute. You fought so hard. Had chances, couldn't quite cash in. There was still some chances to come, but just a massive, massive goal.
Yeah, great call, man. I mean, just great energy play by Smith there to get the poke or the sand wedge and get it over Berger. I'm very excited to ask our pal from bullynews.com, Peter Weiss, who's going to be joining us. We're going to record with him. I'm really curious how he feels about Ann-Katrin Berger's positioning on that play. It felt like, even after the poke happened, that she almost like was raising her hand. Like she had her hand up to block it, and then she kind of like left it up and like waved it a second to be like, I don't think I should have been out there. Because she was kind of out in no keeper's land, like in the middle of the box. Mm-hmm. Like if she would have got there, no harm, no foul. And that's what so much of sports is, right? Like you got a dope like me in Seattle be like, I don't know, Ann-Katrin Berger, maybe you made a mistake there. You've been training your whole life. You're one of the elite goalkeepers in the world. But I would be curious to hear her thoughts on it, obviously. And I always say playing keeper is not like any other position in football. So even my cruddy experience playing football growing up, you fool around in goal sometimes. You're like, yeah, let me play goalie for a little while. So I don't know if she was in really bad position. It didn't seem like she was in great position, though.
That's fair. But, I mean, I wrote in my notes that ball was a 30-70 ball for Sophie Smith. She was at a complete disadvantage. It's almost like she takes one step on the outside, realizes that's not going to work, takes another step the other way to find a path to the ball, and then she's only got time and space and reach for that one sort of like lean back and like just, slap at it. That's very much all she was able to do, and then just perfectly executed. You just sort of wonder if Berger was in a different position, would Smith have beat her another way?
Yeah.
Just because like it was just one of those types of moments where those forwards weren't going to be denied.
That's a great call. So yeah, we'll get it from the ITC personal Frauenbundestrainer Peter Weiss tomorrow. So I'll be interested to hear his opinions on that. To take people behind the curtain, obviously we've mentioned it. We have a little Google Doc. We keep our notes.
What?
We're making sure this isn't all off the dome, if you could believe it, even though sometimes it kind of looks like that. You had mentioned some stuff about Emma Hayes' rotation and what the lineup looked like. My personal U.S. women's national team super fan who I was watching the match with today while we were working pointed out to me that Julie Foudy loves telling you that you should get some subs in during a broadcast. Like Julie Foudy is locked in to be like, hey, might be a good time to get some subs in here. What did you think about the rotation? I wish there was a better, like, Germany gets Frauenbundestrainer as like a hyphenated word. We just have U.S. women's national team manager. I wish we had a more fun name for it, but what do you think about Hayes' rotation here?
I thought it was awesome. I mean, she goes Sonnet for Davidson. That one looked probably injury related.
It worked.
Then it's Williams for Lavelle. I thought Lavelle, I mean, shout out to Rose Lavelle. We had been talking about her. I mean, we could keep it real. Probably maybe on the bubble, like of the roster. I think she probably was not necessarily penciled in as a starter. And then all of a sudden, I think the way things break, she's playing just starter minutes, on this like every third day insane schedule. And, she's played really well. Like, I think when you get to this point in the tournament, I think it's really interesting that you call out the Berger situation on the Smith strike. We're really splitting hairs with regards to like,
of course,
could this have been this? Like, we don't see at this point in this tournament, you don't really see like these gigantic gaffes. We didn't really see any in this game. I think it was a pretty clean game.
Yeah.
So Lavelle's had a clean tournament, even if she hasn't been peak Rose Lavelle. I think she's been super solid. So bringing on Lynn Williams, I thought was really great. Change of pace, an attacking player, something that Germany was going to have to think about.
Oh, yeah.
And then Hayes goes Neiswanger for Dunn, Corbin Albert for the captain, Lindsey Horan, to start extra time. I had been calling for actually both of these players. I thought Neiswanger creatively just provides something a little bit different. And then Corbin Albert, a little bit more just dynamic, more of a physical presence.
Yeah.
Again, the beauty of these subs, they're players that are somewhat like for like with regard to position on the field, but the playing style, totally different. Like Crystal Dunn, Jenna Neiswanger, that's a fucking big adjustment defensively you got to make. Corbin Albert, you're chasing her after like chasing Lindsey Horan. It's a completely different makeup. So I think those moves definitely kept Germany on their heels. And then you look at the timing of these moves. Neiswanger and Albert come in at 91. The goal hits at 95. So who knows correlation, causation, what's going on here.
Sure.
But I think it's safe to say that those two events definitely had a through line passing through them for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what coaching is, right? Like, we talk about the margin for error, whether it's trying to beat a team like Spain, we'll talk about that later, or trying to beat the U.S. women's national team. Coaching is in that margin for error. It is kind of like making the moves in those margins to basically set your team up for the best chance for scoring opportunities in a football match.
Oh, yeah.
I will say, pessimistic me, speaking of our notes, the first thing I wrote was, okay, Horan and Dunn off, Neiswanger and Albert on. That is a swap of a lot of big game experience for not a lot of big game experience. But it worked. And I think to your point, it goes back to what we were talking about in the last episode. It's a change of speeds. It's a change of eye level. It's a change of shape and geometry and all those things. And that's why Emma Hayes gets paid the way she does, and that's why she's regarded the way she is.
Absolutely. And I think the last thing on the subs real quick, prior to Smith's goal, we saw 4 U.S. subs come in, but the 4 players that linked up on the goal were all starters.
Yeah.
So it's almost like Hayes brought in a bunch of kind of like not quite smoke and mirrors, but enough to kind of like shake the snow globe and kind of like make things a little confusing. And then still falls back on those central players, Girma, Coffey, Swanson, and Smith, to kind of like take care of business.
That's a great point. And this has apparently become the notes segment for me, just referring to it. Going back to your Girma point, we always try to capture what is like the buildup to the scoring. And we just have this device that I noticed you and I both use, where we just write the names in a little dash to show the passing sequence. How many times does that passing sequence start with Girma, dash, and then whatever the sequence is? And that's why she's one of the best in the world. And it ended up working out for USA getting past Germany today.
couple quick hitters before we wrap up USA Germany.
Yep.
One, I'm feeling really good about my Sophie Smith carving out a spot on USWNT Mount Rushmore.
Working on it.
Heading into this tournament. That being, a very legit possibility. I think we're getting warmer by the moment here. That's one. I saw this in your section too, that you brought it up. The whole conversation that Champion and Julie Foudy had about the US coming into this with low expectations. I was like, shit detector, pretty much, there was smoke coming out of it.
Yeah, that was bizarre. They're the betting favorite entering the tournament.
I was like, what do we do? Like, we don't have to do this. Julie, we don't have to do this.
Nobody believed in us.
Yeah, seriously. Nobody gave us a chance. Especially not those dummies at the ITC. No, I'm just kidding.
Mm-hmm.
The third bone I have to pick with the telecast here. Apparently, there's a notion that we should be calling these three players the Trident.
Don't like it. Kind of hate it.
It's awful.
Okay.
It's a chewing gum. What are we doing?
Yeah, and it's like the Trident. Yeah, I get the Trident has 3 tips and like a spear-like device, but like, what did Champion goes? Germany gets hit with the Trident, or what did he say?
I got it here. Germany have been speared by the Trident. Even he couldn't. Even he was upset about his delivery. Even he was like
half-hearted.
He's like, he's like, come on, I'm not saying this one. I'm not doing this one anymore. So yeah, when John Champion can't make it work, we've got to do something. Yeah. I'm still Team Alyssa here. 3 forwards of the apocalypse. I think it's a little wordy, but we've got time. Routinely 20 plus extra minutes in each of these matches, so we're not quite pressed for time here.
We're still workshopping. 3 forwards of the apocalypse is great. Don't sell yourself short. Belle Biv de Gaulle, obviously, all-time banger in my book. We're exploring the space. We're looking to figure out what this long-term nickname is. I think we can say the Trident. Probably not it.
Not on this show.
No. We don't recognize that.
Better go to one of them other podcasts with that one. I want to talk about the save.
Oh, yeah.
119th minute. On that play, it was pretty interesting. Like Claire Bull, obviously Germany gets a free kick initiated by a great ball in from Schulze Solano.
Yep.
That I'm sure Peter Vicey was excited about, just to be able to repeat Schulze Solano.
Of course.
Then Clara Bull steps up for the free kick, whips it in, hits the wall, bounces back so quickly, and like Emily Sonic kind of got caught up in real time. It looked clearly offsides.
Yeah.
I went back and tried to watch it. Probably not offsides or really, really close. So that was it was more dangerous on replay than I thought it was in real time. In real time, I'm like, oh, it's definitely offsides, but it didn't look like it once you slowed it down. Freigang gets ahead on it. Alyssa Naeher, I mean, what can you say? Just the most improbable of saves with the most improbable of body parts and body positioning in that moment. Pretty much whatever the situation calls for. If it's in Alyssa Naeher's power to contort her body a specific way or get to a specific spot on the field or, mentally get whatever it is, she's doing it. She did it in this one. 119, you just can't get any later in the match.
Yeah. And
I think Germany is one of those sides where you look at Berger, you look at some of those skill players, maybe not a team you want to get into a penalty shootout with. No. Especially with a younger U.S. side, a little, like a little less experienced. We talked about some of those young players that are probably in line to take some of those PKs. Mm-hmm. Berger on absolute fire still from what she did to Canada. So that could have been a medal saving, a tournament saving save. Just massive. One for the history books. Absolutely.
Totally. It's as good as a goal. Like that save is immense in the tournament. You're totally right. And I think sometimes folks might talk about like a penalty shootout like it's just like a coin flip. And maybe they're not doing it on purpose, but that kind of takes away a little bit from the skill and the strategy involved. But you're exactly right. Like you get into the shootout with Germany, you can lose. You very well might lose that, even as good as USA has tended to fare in penalty shootouts. So you're up in the air, and then she needs to kick out the left foot to make it. I agree with you. I think Freigang was onside, and I had the exact same experience where I was like, way off, not going to count. And then I see the replay, I was like, I think that would have counted. I'm pretty confident that would have counted. So it's just another moment on Nair's resume that she's just building as probably at this point. It's hard to argue that she's not the greatest keeper in the history of the program.
I like it. Who else is in that conversation?
It's her solo and then Brianna Scurry, I would think. But yeah, let us know in the comments. Give us the more historical perspective. I mean, Naeher 100 caps, World Cup in 2019, obviously the Gold Cup this past year. I'd be curious if people tell me I'm wrong. I mean, Hope Solo, when I really kind of started to pay much closer attention in 2015, Hope Solo was a monster back there.
Mm-hmm.
I would be curious if people are going to educate me on that one. So let us know. Tell me if I'm talking out of school on this one, please.
We'd love to hear it. Give us your Mount Rushmores. Fill in some gaps for us. Last thing I'm going to hit before we scoot over to Spain, Brazil. Goal.com defines XG as a statistical measurement of the quality of goal scoring chances and the likelihood of them being scored. Mm-hmm. The reason I bring this up is because Fry Gang in that moment, I mean, let me rewind real quick. You talked about the penalty shootout. Imagine the momentum attached to a 119th minute equalizer against a team that smacked you like 9 days ago. And now you're just a couple penalty kicks away from the gold medal match. So it's not even just the coin flip nature of it. Like there's a lot stacked up against, a US team that concedes that late in the match, that has to go into penalty kicks, face that keeper. Very glad that we avoided that. In my mind, the difference between XG and real G is like history. Obviously, in that moment, Laura Fry Gang, Germany, a very high XG moment. Bull puts the ball in. It's essentially 1-0. Naeher's like, she needs to get really lucky at that point.
Yeah.
Gets the stop, becomes part of history, and essentially like a very substantial high XG moment for Germany doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think that is the magic. The magic is when the play on the field can transcend what the probability is based on the circumstances. So it's like, who cares about probabilities? Like we could just run a computer simulation and figure out some probabilities here and, be like, oh, okay, yeah, Spain wins this tournament 78% of the time. Not so fast though. They've got to play it. And I think what gets us talking, what attaches us to this sport emotionally, spiritually, however you want to think about it, is those moments where the real G diverges big time from the XG. And then we get left with a magical memory, something that I think we're going to take into the future.
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, it fits perfectly because, I mean, the way Alyssa Naeher plays, she's a real G out there. Like, just, I mean, tough as you could possibly hope for, will score during penalty shootouts. You nailed it perfectly. Does exactly what she needs to do to make the big saves. You see it in basketball too. Like, and I know we jokingly say it, like real hoopers know. Like, what's the Kevin Durant tweet? Somebody was talking to him about percentages or something like that, and he goes, "Who wants to talk about math in a basketball conversation?" And it's like, I see the spot for both. Like, if you are in the front office and you're making decisions, like probabilities matter. That makes sense. And you've seen Shane Battier, a great Miami Heat player, part of those like big three championship teams, who talked about probabilities in his defending. But when the rubber meets the road and you are on the court or on the pitch, it's those moments. I think you said it perfectly, man. Like, yeah, the probability exists, but there's also the other side of the probability. And that's where like great players live in that of like, oh yeah, you had the chance to score, but I made the play to stop it. Or you didn't think there was a chance to score, and I made it happen. And that's why we love this shit. That's why sports are awesome.
Total cosign on that. Let's scoot ahead, though. There was another semifinal match.
Yes, there was.
That went down today. Some might call them the favorites, maybe the greatest women's football team ever assembled. Mm-hmm. They took on Brazil, a Marta-less Brazil, a Brazil that was still probably reeling from a little bit of we'll call it a thorough handling of their team by this Spanish national team. And from jump, this one felt much, much different than that group stage matchup between Spain and Brazil. What was the first thing that stuck out to you as this one got rolling?
Brazil looked confident. They looked like they could do what they wanted to do against Spain. And
that's a great point.
I don't know if it's just like mentality and just like the general culture in the team. They were 0% scared. I don't know if this metric counts. Whatever negative percentage scared they were, that's how not scared they were. And you talked about it in the preview. They were not afraid to play physical, and they were going to be creative, and they were going to take their chances. They knew Spain was going to hold the ball. But they're like, okay, you can hold the ball. Where are you going with it? We're not going to let you go where you want to go with it. And nobody does that against Spain.
I'm glad you brought this up because I had this thought watching the game where you're used to seeing Spain kind of like ping it back and forth. They really love to do that 1-2 where it's at a funky angle.
Yes.
But one person will kick it and then take a little like a non-obvious run.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a 1-2, and instead of like maybe like running across goal, they're kind of like running out into space, and then it just becomes like, oh, like wow, now Mariana's like out there by herself. She's got like 15 yards of space. And I think there's something about this Brazilian side where they also kind of play like that. Like they like that a little bit unorthodox 1-2, quick passing, quick pivoting.
Yeah.
And I think there was a bunch of times early in this match where Spain tried to be a little slick with it. It's like a little bit no look, like it's like a 1-2, and I'm going to look this way, and I'm going to kind of like tap it back. And then they were all over it. Brazil was like, we invented this shit. Like all of this.
Yeah.
There was something too about Brazil being like, you're not going to out fancy us. You're not going to out clever us. Like you might be a little bit more precise over a 90-minute period. You might have more individual talent in one-on-one matchups. But we've seen all of this already. We're Brazil. We're a footballing nation. That one was a little bit of a surprise where I'm like, okay, now Spain's not going to be able to like just pull the wool over our eyes and just kind of like do whatever they want out here.
That was evident from the jump. And then when you get just a catastrophe on the Spanish side of an own goal, I will say, and I thought the announcer pointed this out correctly, and it might actually have been Danielle Slayton on the color commentary, who Danielle Slayton just A triple plus every time she's on any broadcast, anytime she's in the booth, giving or like in the studio, giving analysis, just always great. It was either her or the actual play-by-play commentator who did say, okay, if you're Spain, at least that happened in the 6th minute, and you have 84 minutes to kind of recover from it. But even then, Katakoi tries to hit the clearance. I'll say it's unlucky, but she allowed the opportunity to exist with how close she was going to cut it anyway. And she's probably made that clearance hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times. But when you have two players right there, you have one of your own players and a Brazilian player right there, that's a tricky one. Again, not to like, I'm obviously Monday morning quarterbacking this, Monday morning goalkeepering this, if you will. But the chance was there, and maybe it's 1 out of 100 times that happens. But it happened today, and it was not favorable for España.
Not favorable at all. You bring up such a great point when you talk about Brazil's confidence, because when we spoke to Julia Belestrange before the tournament, just kind of get a little temperature check on Brazil, she talked about mentally their propensity to kind of like lose their cool a little bit. You give up a goal, and now it's frustrated. Now they're frustrated, and like they're not supposed to be down, but they're down, and can't really quite get it on track. I thought about that immediately after the first goal. So I'm like, that's out the window.
Yep.
Now it's like absolute game on. We don't have to sort of like try to hold serve here against Spain and try to like take a chance and then like give a chance, take a chance, give it. Like now we're out ahead.
Yep.
We're out on the front foot. We can just go. And that's exactly what they did. I loved the game plan even from there. It was like almost like, let's be even more aggressive.
Yes.
Like, let's squeeze harder. Let's press harder. Take our chances even faster. I thought it was awesome. Like, tremendous way to approach this matchup with a team of the stature of a Spain.
Yeah, totally. And getting out on the counter as much as they could. So in the first half, according to our pals over at FootMob, Spain had 75% possession to Brazil's only at 25. But Brazil had the lead in shots, 8-7. They had more shots on target, 3-1, and they had more big chances, 3-0, just in that first half. Spain was able to have 5 corner kicks. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe somebody could drop it in the comments. But I can't remember any of those 5 Spain corner kicks that I ever thought were real dangerous or real sketchy. That might be a little revisionist history on my side. But the bottom line is, to your point, when Brazil was running at Spain, especially on the counter when they had their chances. And this is a pro Olga Carmona podcast. It has been since the Champions League. They were going right at her and saying, oh, okay, you want to come up and play attacking football? And Spain has used that pressure to really kind of fluster teams in the past. We'll just run right at you then. So now you have to track back, and we'll try to take advantage of numbers on that side. I thought that was a brilliant coaching decision by Arthur Elias.
Yeah, and on Spain's left side, where Olga is sort of supposed to be defending. That's where like Ludmila, Yaya, Early, they were just like, we'll take this space.
Yep.
And Olga, you want to play up? You want to be on the other side of the halfway line? I'll bet you can't catch me. There's a couple of times where Olga's just really gunning it, and she's just not closing the gap on a Ludmila, as an example. And I think it just made it a really long day. And then on the other side, Brazil was happy to kind of like defend and press. I was talking to you about this pre-show a little bit. I was surprised, Spain versus Colombia, how fast Colombia looked. Because I think going into that, I wasn't going to be like, all right, Colombia's got a clear speed advantage, right? I was like, no, Colombia's got a clear toughness, nastiness advantage, even though Spain, could be tough and nasty for sure.
Yeah.
But Colombia was just a different, weight class when it comes to that. But in that match, Colombia looked faster. Like I was just like, wow, like what are they doing? Is there like some new strength and conditioning? Are they, are they up in the mountains or in Bogota? Like, are they, kind of like limiting their oxygen intake and getting ready for this? But no, I think in reality, what we saw was Spain sputtering out a little bit in that match, because today Brazil looked even faster than Colombia did last week. The third goal, the Adriana goal, where she gets the header and then ends up with the putback, Mariona's chasing her and is just DOA. She's got no chance. Scorched in that moment by Adri. And then like Mariona runs past Adriana. The ball, kind of finds the other side of the goal, makes its way back to Adriana. And Mariona is still having outran Adriana, like kind of catching her breath. She's like out of bounds. She's like on the wrong side. So she just like couldn't work her way back into, she's like 4 feet away from Adriana. Just like, I can't get there. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It was trippy to just see them like, on E, like, to that extent, like they had nothing left.
Yeah, I mean, there were clearly some tired legs out there. There was actually a really good conversation in the YouTube comments of our last video, the semifinal preview between friends of the show, Javier Lav and at Ethan1977, who kind of just talked about, if you think about Spain's 2023 World Cup schedule, and then all those Barcelona players and all the tournaments that they had to play, the league games, the Champions League, their league tournament, the cups, all that stuff, UEFA Nations League, Euro qualifiers, and now Olympics. Like that's just an incredible amount of football that they have had to play. And so the tired legs, I think, is a great point. And it's something that I think I underestimated coming into this match when I was loud wrong, thinking that Spain would walk away with this game. I'm not going to shy away from pointing out how loud wrong I was. I do want to rewind a little bit real quick to the Portillo goal. Beautiful pass by Yasmin, kind of like curling the ball around a couple defenders right into Portillo's path. Yasmin at least like announced herself to me at the CONCACAF W Gold Cup. Genius pass by her. And then Portillo, she scores the goal. The cross is coming in and it's curling in toward her. And Portillo hits it near post. And so like what she has to do like physically to hit the ball that way instead of taking it back across the face of goal is that you really just have to like turn your foot and your ankle in such a flexible way to keep it near post. And it's just like you're running and you have to do that. Like what? It's just such like an amazing, like understated athletic feat to do that and to get it on the frame of the goal. And then Portillo hits the very rare, at least to my knowledge, goal Selly of score, run a little bit, then twerk, and then pray. Which I gotta say, not a, you know what? I have not seen that combination of a Selly very often. And to you, Portillo, let me say, I'm cracking my second beer of the show for that Selly because I thought it was incredible.
Tremendous.
Cheers to you, Portillo.
You also maybe undersold that Yasmin cross a little bit. I actually went back and watched this like 10 times. That cross
Genius.
Whizzes by 4 Spanish defenders. With a 5th, who I believe is Mariona, on the other side of Portillo.
Yep.
So like Yasmin scoots it past roughly 5 Spanish defenders, right on the money. All Portillo has to do, all she has to do. The ball's in her path, and she's able to kind of like make a play on it, and the finish super tidy. And then in my notes, I'm like, all right, here we go again. Spain down 2-0 again to another Latin American team, but this time didn't have the same feels. Didn't like the look of this one. Didn't like the lineups. Didn't like the body language. I think a lot of it was off. I think against Colombia, it was surprising to see Spain come all the way back, but also not surprising. In this one, I thoroughly would have been surprised if Spain had come back because they just looked a step slow pretty much for most of the game. And then I think the other thing, we talked about the manager last week, Montse Tomé, for Spain. I mean, tough to know what's going on behind the scenes, but if you're going to go with that non-traditional of a lineup, it just kind of felt like there had to be a little bit more thought to it because it looked disjointed with all those new players. Even when the game got a little desperate, now you see like Bariuelo as an example. He's like, I don't care. I'm going to be out in the wings. I need space to run. I don't care where I'm supposed to be. This is now where I'm just going to be.
Yep.
It reminded me of CO2 just being like, who cares what they just do? What's the coach going to do? Alexia doesn't come on until the 77th. She comes on and just rips a couple that got really close, really tested Lorena, who got a hand on both of them. The first one hit the woodwork from Alexia, but Alexia just basically was like, I got to see what I wrote in my notes here. Alexia, I wrote, Alexia with two absolute, why the fuck have I not been in this game? Rockets.
Yes. I mean, I have to think that there is a physio involved in this or a team doctor or something. She's been one of their most informed players throughout the whole tournament. So I'm going to reserve a little bit of judgment to think that maybe the call was out of Tomé and Alexia's hands. Because otherwise, I don't think it's a defensible position to be like, no, I didn't think I needed her for the first 77 minutes of the match. That can't be right.
Definitely can't be right. And there might have been some physio stuff. Obviously Germany, we see some of the attrition strike them as well. But Atenea, Leigh Alexandri, Battery, and Alexia, none of them in the starting lineup. They all come in at various points in the second half. My players are tired. There's been a lot of travel. We're running on fumes a little bit. What can I do to buy myself a little something extra? But, it wasn't just the lineup because we talked about this last week. Like, we got 76 minutes of Bon Mati without Alexia and didn't look awesome. Didn't look connected. She didn't look like anywhere near the best player in the world. It's not a criticism of her. The link-ups weren't working. The chemistry wasn't there. Her as a focal point that you would maybe want to go to, especially as things are kind of getting out of hand a little bit in this Brazil matchup, didn't quite happen. I also wrote in my notes that they look much more likely to go into second or third gear than they do to go into fifth gear, once they went down a couple goals. I think like it kind of seemed like it was going to get worse with more probability than it was going to get better.
Yeah, and that's essentially how it goes. I mean, really cool to see Catalin get on the score sheet, 90+1. Nutmegs Katakoi to get that finish and really put the final dagger in Spain. I mean, Bariuelo gets the brace toward the end. I'm with you that I had the same experience where going to halftime down 2-0, and I was like, okay, Spain, they can mount this comeback. But then they get back on the field, and I'm like, oh boy, this hill is steeper than I even thought. It's the first time that the real doubts started to creep in that Spain would be able to get back in it, and they just never could.
I kind of loved the Carolina goal. I like Katakoi, as a player. Good. She obviously a little off the rails today, but then she got into it, I think, with Gabby Nunez, like right at the death, where she's like it was either Nunez or Portillo, but she's in one of the Gabby's faces. And like one of the Gabby's is like, yo, chill, like we're playing football here. We're not trying to fight,
Yep.
But Katakoi was pissed. And then I think Catalin got her like 30 seconds later.
Yeah.
And I think knew what she was doing. It was like, I'm just going to sit you down right here with the nutmeg. And now it's Katakoi on her backside. Game over. Just slam the door on this team. And then Catalin ice cold Selly too after. Just stone face, statuesque, like an absolute fucking boss. I just loved everything that Brazil did today, pretty much. I mean, it was an awesome showing. Very cool too, with regard to the dynamics of this competition, that you win your semifinal matchup, you're getting a medal.
Yes.
You have earned you're going home with a medal. I don't want to say it's icing on the cake. Both these teams really, really, really want to win.
Yeah.
Especially for Brazil, who's sitting in the semifinals with Germany, with Spain, with USA. So they're going to be confident, but they loosely kind of have the short stack if you think about like FIFA rankings or recent history or however you want to think about that.
Yeah.
So to win and know that they're going home with a medal, really awesome.
That is pretty incredible. And you raise a good point. It's the first time I've really kind of thought about this is like you see players in the World Cup, you lose the World Cup final and they give you that second place finisher's medal, how many players do you see? They put it around their neck, and the players are almost like, they're almost sick to their stomach, and they immediately take that second place medal off because it's just like, I don't know if I'll ever get here again. This was everything my career was culminating to, and they are just almost inconsolable in that match. In the Olympics, like, of course you want to win the gold, like you're saying, but a silver medal in the Olympics, maybe I don't know if I'm making this up or not, but it feels like a silver medal in the Olympics. I'm going to use parlance that I have no business using. Perhaps hits different than a second place medal in another tournament like the Euros or the World Cup, or even like a Gold Cup type situation.
Yeah, I mean, it probably comes with like growing up having watched track and field or boxing or swimming, or you see the podium and then you see the anthems, and it's a whole kind of moment. They got the flags in the crowd and all that. I mean, it's fucking cool to have an Olympic medal, but winning the Euros, winning the World Cup, that kind of puts you in a different stratosphere historically. I think that's kind of like what it is. It's like there's such a big gap between winning the World Cup and coming in as a runner-up history-wise. But a medal, it's a tactile, tangible thing that, much like Reggie Bush's Heisman, can't be taken away unless it's handed over voluntarily. Still scratching our heads over that one, Reggie.
Of course. Yes. Hold on to those gold medals. Canadian gold medal champions from the 2020 Olympics. Hold on to them for dear life.
Cold dead hands. All right, let's scoot ahead. Based on today's action, that means we are getting a USA-Brazil Olympics gold medal match. Who could have thought it? Who could have predicted it? I can't really take credit because I think I've put this U.S. team in the gold medal conversation. I put them in my silver tier. With Bridie, I was like, yeah, this team's the favorite. The next week, I was like, nah, this team's not the favorite. I've been all over the place with this U.S. side, so I'm not going to take any credit. And I don't think anybody had Brazil in the gold medal match. Really wild. But final will be here Saturday. I'm sure we'll be locked in. Great journey so far. Absolute whirlwind. What are you going to be looking for when the final kicks off?
Well, we get ourselves a rematch of the CONCACAF W Gold Cup final. That's exciting. USA won that match 1-0 from a header off of Lindsey Horan. 45+1 in that match. Different rosters, really. Totally different Brazilian team. I'm going to look for the exact same thing that I looked for in the semifinal versus Germany is what's the team sheet going to look like on the back line when they announce the starting lineup? Are we going to get Dunn, Davidson, Girma, Fox? I would hope so. You mentioned earlier that Davidson came off at half for Emily Sonnet. I really like that. It looked like a protective measure. Just, okay, Tierna, we're working you back into this. Hopefully it was nothing more than that. Hopefully she didn't aggravate any kind of injury like that. This team is built from the back moving forward. Like you have Naeher, the stalwart. You have Girma and Fox. And then, I mean, obviously you cannot discount Crystal Dunn. But like if you have Crystal Dunn, whether it's Emily Sonnet or Tierna Davidson there, that is like the straw that stirs the drink, essentially. And then you play the ball forward. And even with the questions in midfield, you get the ball up to your forwards there. So it's going to take an effort. I mean, we talked about Brazil's confidence. We talked about Brazil's physicality. They're going to try to test Girma, Dunn, and Fox in every opportunity that they have. And if they think Davidson might be dinged, it's not unethical for them to test Davidson at every single opportunity that they have with physical play, even on the attacking side. So I'm looking at the defense first going to this one. How about you?
I agree with that. And we're lucky enough to be in the position where this is the final matchup.
Yeah.
So if you got to stick Sonnet there in Davidson's spot and ask her for 90 or 90 plus or whatever, I think she's up for it. I think she had another really good game.
So consistent.
Apologies to Emily Sonnet. I think we had you on our roster, but I think she was one of our bubble selections. She was on it.
We had her in though. Yeah.
I'm just apologizing for even considering having her anywhere near the bubble conversation because she's been tremendous this tournament. Super valuable. Just the way kind of like the injuries broke. Couldn't imagine a better player to have to kind of fill in that gap, be able to play in multiple spots. Another really good game today. So I think it does start defensively. And when you look at the 5 opponents that the U.S. has played, Germany twice, Japan, Australia, Zambia, and I tell you that they've only given up 2 goals in 5 games.
Nice.
2 of them had an extra 30 attached to it. I mean, that's That's an insane
Yeah.
level of defensive efficiency. So I do think it absolutely starts with the defense. And something that we talked about with the USA Germany preview, I like when the US is sort of giving up a little real estate just to be able to give themselves a chance to run a little bit. Because I think it's a totally different team when we're able to do that. Obviously, the goal comes from a similar type sequence. I can see some of that with Brazil too, where we're able to maybe draw them out a little bit. Tarciane, she doesn't give a fuck. She'll just run wherever,
Awesome.
like wherever the action is. She's just like, I'll go over there and mix it up. Yep. So she's not past getting herself slightly out of position. Great player as well. But I think we're going to be able to find little alleyways, little avenues, little boulevards through and around that Brazil defense. And I think, give me Girma, give me Naeher, give me the rest of that back line to lock things down. And I think there's no reason to believe this team is all of a sudden vulnerable to offensive fire. Even if it's Brazil and we haven't necessarily seen this version of them, I still put my money on US defensively to be able to kind of hold it down.
It's hard not to at this point. I mean, I think the resume is there. The question is, can Brazil's creativity and their kind of doggedness in terms of, okay, when we attack on the counter, we're attacking with full force. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be their best chance. If they can nick a goal in the first 25 minutes, I think that'll be really interesting to see. I also think it's worth pointing out, Brazil's goalkeeper, Lorena, has looked hurt for 3 matches now. She is laboring out there. I know you've done a good job of talking about it in the past episodes. What a gutsy, tough player she is. To be out there as a goalkeeper, and she's not afraid to put her body on the line. And I know there is a difference between being injured and just hurt. She looks injured, and she is really gutting it out.
Absolutely gutting it out. Absolute gamer. And making huge saves. Those 2 Alexa strikes. Right. These are full extension, flying through the air. Lorena just gets just enough on that first one to redirect it, to get it just to the woodwork, to get it just to get a ricochet off back into the field of play. I mean, she's making massive, massive stops. Yeah. She's got the hot goalie, kind of situation going on where it's just okay, wow, we're not going to beat, it's not going to be able to beat her with anything today. And I think when you think about the USA side, that is where things have gotten a little bit sticky. You can go all the way back to the Australia match, the Japan match. I think the first Germany match was the last time we saw the offense really, really humming through and through. Since then, it's been, I think, one goal, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, Australia, we had a couple. And they seem to be getting later and later. So, you kind of wonder, did Emma Hayes outthink herself, kind of constructing this whole, how do we beat Spain strategy? And now we got to figure out a way to beat Brazil.
That is going to be really fascinating to watch. And like I pointed out, so in the CONCACAF W Gold Cup, in that final, Brazil had 55% of the ball. That game was managed by Twyla Kilgore, and Alex Morgan was playing the 9. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about a different set of circumstances. Brazil led in shots 12-7, but USA led in shots on target 6-3. USA had committed 15 fouls to Brazil only committing 8. So the physicality was kind of leaning a different way there. I think there are some things to take from that final, but this is a completely different set of circumstances. And we talk about Brazil looked way faster than Spain. We talk about how leggy Spain looked. USA has looked kind of gassed, especially toward the end of some of these last 2 matches, Japan and Germany specifically in the knockout stage. I don't think Brazil is not tired. Wait, did I do that right? I think Brazil might be tired is what I'm trying to spit out here. So I think both squads are just battling exhaustion as well as battling each other on there. And if it comes down to a battle of whose defense is going to hold up, then I think the advantage is USA. But it's one single game of football, so it could come down to something totally different than that.
Yeah, there's something telling me that this one is going to be a 1-0, 2-1 type affair.
Sure.
Just because I think the United States definitely has the advantage defensively. I think the U.S. has more talent in the attack, but I kind of feel like Brazil has done more with their chances in this tournament. And now, we talk about the legginess, we talk about the fatigue. There's an extra day, so obviously like we're recording this Tuesday night, matches went down Tuesday, finals not going down until Saturday. And now you have Marta, who is super well rested.
Yeah.
So like she's going to be absolutely the most rested of any player, I think, on the pitch. And then when you rewind back to that CONCACAF W Gold Cup, that one was played in San Diego. So effectively a road game for Brazil, home game for the USA, and still very much in contest. I think what got us excited about that Brazilian team, especially coming off last summer's World Cup, I think like we've now seen them come to pass in this tournament. Even the telecast mentioned it, that this team snuck in as a 3 seed.
Yeah.
They got in on goal differential, and now they find themselves in the gold medal. Like, it's just a very cool situation.
It's fantastic. What a team. And I mean, you look at like their kind of midfield attacking players. I thought Priscilla had some really good moments. We've talked about Ludmilla. Angelina, you know what time it is. Yaya has played really well. Jennifer has had a couple good moments as well. She had the goal in the last match, if I remember correctly. You know me, I am one of the world's foremost Jennifer appreciators. Just Jennifer as a name as it goes. Side note. But yeah, they can score. They're tough. They're creative. This is what football's all about. One game sample. You have a little bit of the surprise versus the betting favorite. The little bit of a surprise knocked off the Giants on their way here. This is what we play for. You play for trophies. You play for medals in this case, and we get to enjoy it on a Saturday, maybe with a couple Frosties as we watch. Who's got it better than us?
Nobody. Last note, Caroline.
Come on now.
Got a little extra rest. She's going to have a little spring in her step. Might have a couple NWSL MVPs going heads up this Saturday. That's going to be pretty awesome. I mean, this Brazilian team, I think if you're a fan of the NWSL, a lot of these names are going to stick out. Angelina, too, wore the captain's armband for Brazil. I just keep thinking about the conversation we had with Julia, where she was just like, obviously very guarded, still a little bit wounded from the World Cup last summer. Julia, definitely got to come back on the show. We'll do a little bit of a vibe check, see what things are like as it pertains to the Brazilian women's national football team. How about a score prediction? I know it's early. I know it's been a long day. Hate to do it to you. I went on record. I think this one's going to be 1-0, maybe 1-1 PKs, 2-1 type game. This one's going to definitely be in contest very late.
Yeah. I'm going to do 1-0 USA.
Let's go.
I think the goal comes between the 60th and the 75th minute. And I think it's a Mallory Swanson goal. Let's get that in there. I will say there was a moment, and you mentioned it earlier, and I'll do this like real quick. When they took off Lavelle and put on Lynn Williams, I was like, "Oh God, I love how aggressive that sub is," because it's sort of like for like you were talking about, but Lavelle's a midfielder and Williams is a forward. Now you basically have 4 forwards out there, and they did the thing that we have talked about of like, okay, well, maybe you just drop Swanson or Smith and play them in kind of like that number 10-ish role. And I love Swanson there. I love Swanson there as much as I love Smith in that role, because they're both such genius distributors in the middle of the park and things like that. So I'm gonna stake my claim on this is the match where Swanson comes through again, gets the goal. Maybe it's a 1-2 with Smith, something looking like that. But we've called Mallory Swanson a one-person offense. She doesn't have to be in this scenario with all these great players around her. So I'm going to place my take chip on Mal Swanson to score the winner.
I like it. I like that. Goal scorer is interesting. I think I'm going to guess that we get like a non-traditional goal scorer. I'm trying to think about who would fit the bill there. Maybe like a Tierna Davidson header, or maybe like a Girma. Like just if Girma wanted to kind of solidify her best player on the team, but maybe sort of knocking on the door, best player in the world kind of conversation. A game winner here on like off like a set piece or something. A ball finds its way to her.
The ball trickles out of the box like on a set piece, and she's just like, "I'll have a go," and she just like upper 90s one. Could you Woso Twitter in America would melt down.
Bloods and Crips will be in the street just hugging it out, just burying the hatchet.
It's all love.
Awesome. All right, man. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think that's it. Once we've gotten to the Naomi Girma Saves America part of the show, I think we've covered everything.
No stone unturned here at the ICC. All right, man. I think we did it. This has been another episode of Into the Channel. A sincere thank you for watching, listening, following, liking, subscribing, just plain hanging out with your boys throughout this glorious, glorious tournament. Remember to like if you liked and subscribe or follow into the channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over at your favorite podcast app. It's the least you can do. Actually, the least you can do is nothing, but it would be a very nice gesture if you're able to do that for us. We'd very much appreciate it. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grant Angle, for what do you know? Just a couple of American bros in the gold medal match. We will be back Saturday to recap all of it. Actually, we're going to be back tomorrow talking to our guy Vicey, Peter Weiss from Bully News. Get a little temperature check on Germany, get a little preview for the bronze medal match. So if you were holding out for our thoughts on that, just give us another day or so. We'll be back with the head of our Germany news desk, Mr. Peter Weiss. Check it in. But I appreciate you, man. Great tournament so far. We're right there. We're knocking on the door. Just one more match to go.
Couple more sleeps until it's medal time. You could say Peter is the tip of our trident when it comes to German football. I don't know, maybe me and you just thinking about Ninja Turtles, maybe we're nunchucks. I don't know how a two-person nickname would go. Either way, we appreciate all of you for watching the show, for chiming in. The comments are awesome, and YouTube, we very much appreciate you guys know ball. Thank you for rocking with us as people who are constantly helping us, educating us, keeping the conversation going. And there's still plenty of intrigue to go on in that bronze medal match. Germany-Spain is going to be incredibly interesting. We got one of the best in the business, Peter Weiss, joining us. So please check out that episode, and we will see you guys very soon.